Yeah, we're gonna go nerdy with some tech stuff.
Welcome, welcome back to Notion Nerds.
Yes. So with the Morgan AI Planner, obviously, as we've just discussed, it shows display labels from the external tasks. So whether that's Todoist or ClickUp or Obsidian or whatever. And with Notion, because it's database properties, you can show most of the properties. Can't show roll-ups or formulas because they're different types and Morgan doesn't really know how to display them, which is understandable. So what I've been fiddling with inside of Notion, again, going like I don't do Notion simple, is using automations and combining that with the way that Morgan works with the due dates. So what I'm trying to work out at the moment, still fiddling, is to have said tasks, so research, script, edit, record, publish, for example, and have them blocking each other. So research would block script, script would block record, etc. And the blocking is obviously a relation property. With Notion, you can have trigger automations. So if a task that is blocked becomes unblocked, you can trigger it to change a status property or a select property. That select property is what Morgan can use to filter a task list in the sidebar, but it can also be used in frames. So I could say is blocked or is not blocked to the AI planner. So I can say, hey, AI planner picked all the not blocked tasks. Or for the use case you were just discussing, if you have a task that has a status, and you find an automation inside of Notion that has a trigger that can change the status, you can set it so that if you complete something, it then goes done, changes the status, but then throughout the automation trigger, then rechecks the done so it's not done.
Oh, I see.
Does that make sense? So it's kind of like a recurring task, but it's not. It's you're using the tick box as a trigger automation to change the status. So Morgan can still use the tick box trigger inside of Morgan, and then the task would go back in. So Morgan's side, it would say, "Hey, you completed this task. Go away." And Notion would go, "Oh, you've completed it. Great. Oh, we're going to change it over to another select and then uncheck it." And Morgan goes, "Oh, there's a new task. It's actually the same one. Here it is." Um,
One thing I thought was really cool is you can still schedule multiple events because I was a bit suspicious. So I bought it in yesterday and I was like, okay, let's see. Because this is bought in my work for the company that I can't talk about. And so I
mhm.
bought in that database that's specifically for me. And I've gone, okay, cool. How does this like, can I have multiple sessions scheduled?
Well, yeah.
And I can. And when I complete one, if there's another session still on the schedule, it will not mark it as complete. And I'm like, yes, because that's what like. I honestly think, Morgan, if you like using Notion, but find the completion of tasks laborious because you've got to mess around so much with it, then using Notion in combination with Morgan is so powerful in terms of getting stuff done. Like it's such a more action orientated way of using Notion.
I'm looking forward to August Bradley talking about it because I know August used Morgan in the past, and I'm pretty sure
Mm.
he's still using it. And obviously, he is a big Notion user. So I'm curious to see how he's using Morgan with Notion, especially as Morgan has his due and due dates. Obviously, they're due dates and
Mm.
planned dates. So Morgan uses the PPV philosophy or whatever you want to call it because it's not PPV, it's due and due dates. But yeah, so Morgan uses.
I think that's what's his name?
That's a great person.
Yeah. Can't remember his name now. David Allen? I think it's Get GTD. I think that's from GTD.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I've heard it from so many places. Finding an actual source for it's hard. Or an original source for it, I should say. So yeah, I'm curious to see how he's using it because he is a big like action database calendar person, and he used calendars inside of Notion, which I know quite a few
Yeah.
Notion users don't use.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm very intrigued. But then I feel potentially because Notion Calendar is, I'm going to say it's such a flop. It's so useless. Um, Morgan Calendar could be Notion's calendar. The only issue being Morgan's obviously paid, Notion's free, and it's another app, whereas Notion tries to do it all in one. Like
Yeah.
they are two big barriers. But for businesses that
Mm.
are using Notion, if they want to have a look at their calendar, I personally, I know me as a person in a business would want to see it through a Morgan calendar rather than the Notion calendar. But that's me.
And also there is that assumption that working from a calendar is works for people too, to be fair. Which it does. It's just it's quite funny when I have conversations with people, they're like, you do everything from your calendar? Isn't your calendar really messy? I'm like, yeah. And then I know I've got lots on.
Messy? Mm.
Well, yeah, it's messy. But to me, I'm like, okay, I've got this, then this, then this. I know what I'm doing. I just look at it and I know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
And
I
it is
think
messy because life is messy. It's not structured in a overly organized, overly structured, top down, must be minimal, must be this, must be like it just abandons all assumptions and actually works with how I actually work
I think
instead of having to use what everybody else tells you to use.
yeah, and I think this relates to the list problem. Like lots of people have problems with lists because they get overwhelming or they get too long or it's hard to find things in them, etc., etc., etc. And you still have the lists in Morgan. Like my sidebar list on my left can get quite long, which is why I use the search button to actually search for things inside of my task list, which you can do in other task managers. But with Morgan, I don't really need to look through the task list because if it's not on my calendar, then I'm not planning to do it. Like, that's the way it is. Like, if it's scheduled, then I'm going to see it in the calendar. If it has a due date, then I'm going to see it in the calendar.
Mm,
If it has one of those things in the future, then I will see it in my left sidebar at the top that says due soon. The only tasks that are potentially going to get hidden in the sidebar are things that don't have date information on,
mm,
which for me is either my read later list because I don't know when I want to do it, but I actually put due dates on those. I put them typically on the Sunday of the day that I capture them. So on the Sunday when I'm planning my stuff, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, do I actually want to read this thing? No, okay, I'm gonna get rid of it." Or AI schedules it. And the other things, all have information on.
yeah.
I put a date on it, whether that is, I don't know, put it on Sunday because that's my planning day, or put it tomorrow because I'll have a look at it tomorrow. It's just a date, and because it's scheduled on a date, Morgan has information to prioritize it. I don't have to think about that. What I got to think about is when do I think I could get this done?
It is so good. Like the filtered view is also incredible. Now that I've started using different task um
Sources.
sources, like the filtered views are just amazing. I can see all of my tasks, all of the stuff that's in progress, all the stuff that's not. Oh, so good. So good.
Have
I love it.
you have you started using the custom filter view a lot then?
Not really. I've just been kind of putting stuff in my calendar and then using the automated thing. But
The planner.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just use the AI planner because I don't need to think about it and it just puts things in a good place. I need to work a little bit more on my frames because I don't think they're quite then I'm still kind of the solutions are emerging because I keep changing things and just slowly adapting things as I use it more regularly. But it even now it's just like, yes, this is exactly what I need if I want to use AI. This is what AI is good for. Just put things somewhere, and then once it's there, I'll figure out whether I want to do it or not.
Yeah.
Pretty
Because
much.
and that's the thing with the suggestions. Like, I
Mm,
like that it's a suggestion because sometimes, according to all of the data that I've given it, all of the logical things that you would put into a calendar, a machine is going to suggest something, and you might go, "Ah, I don't feel like it."
yeah.
Now, there is no way for any AI to predict whether you're going to feel like it or not.
No. No.
Like yesterday, it's scheduled in for me to do a couple of grant applications,
Yeah.
and everything on my schedule, on my task list, on my projects, like there was nothing better for me to do at that time. It made total sense for me to do it, but I
Dear.
just didn't feel like doing a grant proposal before dinner, so I didn't. I made a Notion video instead, um, which went up on Friday. And because it's a suggestion, I can see the suggestion, and then I can look in the right list of other tasks, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do that one instead.
Yeah. It's so good. It's quite exciting. I love it.
So here's my question to you.
Mhm.
You know, Motion obviously has its locked tasks, i.e., you've scheduled it, it's locked, it's not going to automatically remove it around and schedule it stuff. And then it has its
Mm,
auto schedule tasks.
mm,
Would you want Morgan to auto schedule your tasks?
mm. I don't know. I don't think so.
Because my experience with Motion, albeit it was like a year ago and it was only for 30 days, was that it was trying to force me to work all of the time. Because if I completed a task quicker than I expected, say I put a block in for an hour and I finished the thing in 30 minutes, it would then rearrange my day, and that 30-minute break suddenly got filled with the next task to be done. And sometimes that
Yeah.
was a completely different task. So if I've prepped my day, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this, then this, then this. I do thing one, fine. I do thing two halfway through, and thing three now changes to something that was going to be tomorrow, but because I finished it a half hour early is now something else. To me, that messes with me. I'm like, yeah, but I was going to do the other thing next, not that thing now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like that.
I like having to still think about it. Like just a moment of, oh, yeah, no. It keeps me looking at it and going, ah, yeah, here's things. I like that touch. And it's such a light touch because as it gets better at figuring out how I work and as I improve my
Frames,
scenes and stuff,
frame
frames,
filters, yeah.
yeah, as soon as once I figure out my frame filters, it's going to be incredible. Like I'm so excited for and it's going to keep getting better.
So this is something that I've noticed in myself in the way that I'm using frames. I have my 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 ideal week workday frames from like the morning, early afternoon, late afternoon, right? But then my evening frame is not really a set frame. Like I change the filters depending on my area, if you're going to use a para method, my area priorities or my project priorities. Like last week, last week and previously, my focus was to get the course sort of redone. And I had that evening frame filtered for course tasks. But now, because I've done that thing, I've adjusted the frame to focus on other things. So the frame is because I can be so flexible with, oh, I just want those tasks in here, or I just want these things in there. I can shift my entire week's planning by adjusting just one setting in the filter frame.
Mm,
So it's not a ideal week set in stone.
mm.
You can just adjust it, but like, you know what? This week I want to focus on some of these things. You can
And so when
theme
you
it.
adjust it, do you do it for the whole, do you just say replace occurrences or going forward? And then next week you go back in and maybe you change it back on that beginning of the week, so to speak? Do you
Yeah,
do that's how you yeah, because that's really cool. It's just a
yeah.
nice way
But
of
it's
working.
it's basically going, you know what? I want to work on the course now at this time slot. So I just change the filter, and because it's a every weekday as an occurrence, like Monday to Friday, it just says, okay, focus on the courses. And I can see during the week if I'm going to fill out that week. If I'm not going to fill out that week, then great, I've got some spare spots towards the end of the week. Gets to next week, and I go, you know what? I now have loads more tasks for the course because of all the stuff I did last week. I'm going to keep it there. Or actually,
Mm,
I have nothing left of the course because I managed to get it all done, which was pretty efficient of me.
Yeah.
Let's focus on something else instead in this slot. So
Yeah,
it's
it's really cool. One of the things I've been enjoying is that with my work as a contractor, I know how long on average a project takes, but it's not I could not really I want to keep it balanced so that I'm not just doing one thing. Sometimes I just have to, and then that's fine. I just do that. But often I can spread it out a little bit more, and because of how I've set up the like filtering so that I'm not doing more than 2 hour blocks and etc. I can just put that in and then it just fills it out for me. I'm like, oh, cool. I don't even have to think about it. Cool, I'm doing this. Cool, I'm doing that. And it removes that busy work that like, oh, think about this and think about that and blah, 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 this and blah, 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 that. It's great. I really enjoy it.
so when do you use the IO planner? Like at
When?
at what point do you push the button?
Um, First thing in the morning usually. Like when it has the schedule. I'm renaming my daily plan to schedule AI. Schedule AI planner. That
Yep.
it's just that is what that is. It's I'm going to schedule everything that's happening this week or the next couple of days, depending on how life is whether how busy it is and how many things I've got to do. But yeah, it's great. It's just brilliant.
So this is what I've been thinking about recently. In Akiflow, they have routines like start my
Mm,
day, end my day, or is it shutdown routine, I think. And they've recently brought in some weekly ones as well.
mm,
The way I see the routine in Akiflow is the same way I see the AI planner in Morgan,
mm,
because I start my day in Morgan the same way you do.
mm,
I push the AI planner button, and then it gives me a ton of suggestions, right?
mm,
Now, I don't know whether you've been in Akiflow recently, but the
mm,
Akiflow open or start my day thing, it looks at all the tasks from yesterday and says, when do you want to schedule them? And it's got the task list on the left of yesterday's tasks, then it's got the calendar on the right, and then it's got the goal thing on the far left, which is basically
mm,
just a high priority task for the day, like yeah, whatever. And you schedule in the tasks from yesterday to today. Then it takes you to today, and then shows you the task from today with the calendar and says, "Hey, what do you want to schedule?" Showing you the tasks planned for today. It just has a date on it, which in Morgan you can do, but also some tasks that are due potentially soon, like high priority things, and then you drag them on and schedule into your calendar, and then you finish your day plan. Well, the AI planner does that because it shows you the tasks on the left. The scheduled tasks are obviously in the calendar anyway. The ones that are due or overdue appear in the right in the suggestion, and the AI planner suggests the rest on your day already, so you don't have to drag them in. So I'm like,
mm.
I feel like we have a a day routine at the start. The only thing is it's a task on your calendar to do rather than a button at the bottom left to click.
Yeah. But it kind of works exactly the same.
Yeah, it seems to function the same. What
Mm.
I'm kind of debating whether or not to put a shutdown task for planning tomorrow.
Oh, so that you do so that's almost your daily plan for the next day.
Yeah,
Mm. That'd be interesting to see how that goes.
because I mean, I have a plan my day at the beginning of every day, and that's every day. I changed the occurrence to make it every day rather than every weekday because the plan my day task only goes Monday to Friday by default.
Yeah.
So I did change the occurrence on that because I don't work Monday to Friday. Uh, well, when I say I don't work Monday to Friday, I don't just use Morgan Monday to Friday because I do technically only work Monday to Friday. Um, but the week plan I have on a Sunday. Like yeah, it is from 7 till 8 o'clock this evening. It says planning go through list. That's literally the name of the task that I made months ago. Uh, but that would be, or is now, I push AI Planner, drag the planner head dial all the way to the end, um, and see what it suggests. And last week I swapped swapped two tasks around, and the rest of it I was like, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
So, thanks. So instead of it taking an hour, I just drag the dial across. I'm like, yeah, that's good. Cheers. Schedule
so
all.
good. So good.
Would you want a button for that, or would you prefer it being a task on your calendar?
I mean, I like the task on the calendar because it is basically what I'm already doing anyway. So why wouldn't I want that as a task on my calendar, to be honest?
I'm curious now. I've done my plan day thing, but oh, let's not put it in the past. That would be dumb. Oh, why is it? Oh, I'm in the AI plan app. That's why it's looking all silly. Uh, yeah, because I don't think you can have two daily plan tasks. Oh, push.
No, I doubt it.
Did you try?
Hmm.
Uh, I'm gonna try and put it in a different calendar to see if it makes a difference. Oh no, you can do it. You can do
Oh,
it. So you know, like the glowy hover that hovers around the Plan My Day. Well, if you put hashtag daily dash plan into it, it will give you the hover around the task, the visual hover
oh,
around the task. So I could have and because it's just a normal task, I could have a plan my week and it be a hover thing. So, that's got me thinking. So in Agiflow, they have the goal as a plan, like so as a priority, sorry. So you've got low, medium, high priority, no priority, of course. And then you have a goal task. And literally the only difference is it shows like a rainbow thing around the task. So you can see, hey, this is the goal of the day. Um, But if Morgan can give us more customization by using hashtags in the descriptions of tasks,
that'd be so cool.
I may add a feature request for that.
That would be so cool.
Because the functionality, from the look of it, isn't limited. And I would guess the task counter is looking for just hashtag daily plan. So if we get more customization for the visuals of tasks by using hashtags, so hashtag goal of the day, for example, then the goal of the day could change the color. It could change the aesthetic of the task. Maybe is like I say, a rainbow glow or something else. But yeah, so I'm gonna ask on the feature request for that one. But yeah, so
That's so cool.
I reckon I could put a plan my day in the um weekly plan. Actually, what does that look like? Why am I talking about it when I can just do it? uh, daily plan, save. Uh, yeah, I guess this and future occurrences. Go for it. Okay, so it didn't save it. Ooh, why didn't it save it? Maybe it's because I have this task in two calendars because I was silly.
Maybe.
No, it's worked. It's now glowing. It is now glowing. My plan. I'm going to change that to plan my week. I'm doing it on the fly during a podcast.
Because, that's how that works.
Well, yeah, exactly. So now I have a plan my week task. Um, on Sunday from 7 till 8. And because I've just changed that task, it's different from the other task. So I can now unschedule and delete that one, this and future occurrences. Cool. Yeah, I had it in my calendar twice because of all the other things that I fiddle around with. But yeah, so now I have a glowing plan my week task during the day and it hovers. Ah, that's so cool. That's so
That is
cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
What do you think of the AI hover and glow
I think it
aesthetically
looks
and
nice.
suggestions?
It looks good. I like it. It's nice. It's subtle, but it's enough to be like, oh, that's a thing. I've really got to look at that. Like it shows me the differences. I really like that. Yes.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is I'm talking aesthetics for a second here. What I'm thinking is the plan my week and plan my day and all the rest of it is instead of it being a hover around the task, be it on the actual tick box because that's where I tend to look. 'Cause
Yes.
at the moment it's on the border. If it was to be like a rainbow hover around the task block box instead, because that's where I tend to
Yeah,
look. I look
so
at the
or a rainbow hover around the task box and when like or like around the check box
mm,
and then when you hover over it, it kind of does it across the whole thing. I think that would be cool.
yeah, maybe. I'm just thinking like I know. Oh, when I click on the plan my week, it goes into like an event block out blue hover rather than a faded out task block hover. If that makes sense, like a single click when you click on a task, it's sort of like transparently blue for me because that's my color. Whereas when I click on the one that's got the hashtag, it goes like full blue, like an event, so I can see even when I click on it. Yep, this is important. This is different. Hmm.
That's so cool.
Wasn't expecting to be talking about Morgan today, but
Hey, who knows what we talk about these days?
yeah, I mean, considering it is my job, I'm like talking about it all the time now. But yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
But it's cool. It is cool.
That's why I know
Um,
all the words. Like the planner day, the AI planner. Yeah, yeah, that one.
the
It's like
the
the
that
task,
Dubry.
the Google task thing, task sources. Yes, yes, task sources. Yeah, yeah. Um,
It's this one I click and that one I do a thing with.
yeah.
I don't
I know the buttons. I just don't know how to describe it to people that don't know where the buttons are.
pretty much.
Go top left, then second button in the menu. Go.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. What are your thoughts when it comes to um getting tasks from other places into Morgan? Because obviously you started using Google Tasks. Are you still using Morgan Tasks as like a I gotta I gotta do a thing, put it in there?
Yeah, for the moment, I kind of basically it depends on where I'm working, depends on where I pull the task in. So where it makes sense to do it elsewhere, I do it elsewhere. So for example, I've basically in my inbox, I get it from there. Otherwise I
As in your email inbox.
mm,
Yeah.
yes, to be yeah. If it's in my email inbox, I bring it in. And that's how I kind of do that. And it's nice and simple, nice and easy, and doesn't require much effort.
So when you're away from your computer, how do you add a task? Do you use Morgan or
Um, yeah, I just press the create task button in Morgan and create that task. It goes in my inbox. When I come back to my computer, I move it.
to wherever it needs to go? Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I've seen quite a few people not like the mobile app, and I feel it's because they compare Morgan Mobile to like Todoist and TickTick Mobile, but Todoist and TickTick aren't calendar apps, they're task apps.
Yeah,
I mean, don't
I
get me
don't.
wrong, the Morgan app still has some work to be done.
Yeah, definitely has some work to be done.
There's lots of room for improvement.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I don't see it as a yeah, I don't see it as a task app. Well, like it is a
no,
task app, but it's not a task app. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Most of my use of
It'd
Morgan
be
is look
very
at the
hard to
widget.
turn it to just a task app.
Yeah, my main use of Morgan is what am I doing at the moment? Like I open up my phone, I sign in, and I see Morgan. It's like the first thing that I see. I'm like, oh, I'm recording a podcast right now. Then, um, well, actually, yeah, I'm recording a podcast. Then it says I need to exercise, but that's actually halfway through the podcast because of the time. And then I need to do Eastbourne trampoline stuff. So, like, I use Morgan to check my agenda. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Do you use a Google Calendar month widget in your phone?
No.
Okay. because obviously Google Calendar is different from Morgan, so you have different calendars available.
Mm.
So on Morgan, I show my tasks, my events. On Google, I show my events and my family's events.
No, no one else in our family really uses
Ah,
the calendar, so that's why.
that's fair. I guess like my family's older than your family. We're all well, I say we're not all in calendars, but like mum and dad's work is in calendars, sister's work and when she's away and stuff is in calendars. So yes. Okay. Interesting. Anything else you want to discuss about technology? He's thinking to the sky.
Don't think so. No, technology out. It's pretty good.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I had an interesting situation yesterday when
Oh,
I was driving over to trampoline. So little bit of a story time here. I'm driving, fine, doing 60 on a 60 as expected, and then I see a rabbit or a bird. I still don't know which it was in the middle of the road. And I was like,
uh-oh.
okay, I'm gonna beep a couple of times. It's still not moved. Okay, I'm flashing and beeping now. It still hasn't moved. There's no car coming on the other side. Fine, I will drive round it. So I drove round it. About 10 meters later, I see a dead thing in the middle of the road. I thought, okay, someone didn't drive round it. And then I see a deer like to the right side. So I'm driving on the left side of the road for those that are from other countries. I'm driving on the left. The deer is on the right and it's facing away from the road towards the trees. You see where this is going? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna slow down. So I went from 60 to about 50. And then as I was almost level with it, for whatever reason, it ran straight across the road, right in front of me. So I've smashed my brakes on. Um, I probably hit it at around 20 mile an hour. And it did a half turn, stood up, and then ran back across the road. And I was like, the deer just got hit by a car, fell over, and then ran back across the road where it just got hit by a car. Like, surely it would carry on running forwards, not back the way it just. But yeah. So and that was about 300 meters from my destination as well. I was literally almost there. So I now have a new light on my car. So my front left light is brand new, and my front right light is not.
Yeah, a friend who's been on the podcast before,
Hmm,
the car was completely totaled by a deer darting out.
yeah,
Because
which
they are
big.
built
Yeah,
and they are big.
they are big. They are solid. Um, like I felt fine this morning. I woke up and I've got like a twinge in my neck, and I reckon that's where I've like emergency stopped.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I reckon if I hadn't have slammed the brakes on as early as I did, I would have gone straight into that thing, and yeah, my car would be no more.
Yeah,
So I think I've got off light with just a front front thing. Well, I say front thing, like so my left light, indicator light, fog light, and high beam all broke. Understandably. The front left bumper is got a couple of cracks in, and then the the squirty water that goes from the windscreen wipers. Yeah,
yeah,
the pipe disconnected underneath the car, so basically that just emptied, and it's got a little bit of a crack in the tubing as well. So I have like a little drip. So to
yeah.
if a bird um does a number two on my car, I basically got to pull over and pour water on the on the front of the car. Um, hopefully not for too long, so get it properly fixed. But I got the lights fixed. But yeah, so that happened to me yesterday.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, yeah. Like I say, I then drove about right, I checked the car out, make sure it was safe to drive, etc., etc. Drove about 300 meters, parked it up, and then coached trampoline for an hour, waiting for my dad to come up to inspect the car to make sure it was safe to drive back to the mechanic. Because if not, obviously I'd need to get the AA for them to tow the car, and then I'd drive, or my dad would drive me back. But so yeah, that was a fun day yesterday.
Yeah, I can imagine. A little bit of a shake up, just a little bit of a shake up.
Yeah, well, I was quite happy because going back like pre-COVID time, if that happened to me, I would have been an absolute mess. I would have been an absolute mess. I would not have been able to function, do anything. I would have just sat there in shock. Um, I just did all the things you'd expect to really do. I obviously once I was stationary, I was like, right, okay, Deer's moved out of the way. I'm gonna pull over into a lay-by and then inspect the car. So hazard lights on, pull over, inspect the car, call Dad to make sure because I called Dad because there wasn't anything obviously wrong with the car because the car still traveled for 50, 100 meters before the lay-by. So it's like, car still works, don't really need AA yet. Yeah, and then just carried on. And people didn't even realize that my car had broken down in trampoline. Like they didn't realize that I just hit a deer. So about halfway through the session, I was like, I'm gonna go sort my car out. And like, what happened to it? It's like, oh, I hit a deer. Oh, when did you do that? Like 5 minutes before I turned up. Oh, really? Wow. So,
We've had interesting conversations at our house recently with the kids.
oh yeah,
Very interesting.
about
They have been, when it comes to learning things, they're like, I don't know how to do this.
right. And that's
Can you
it.
show me how to do this? Tell me what to do. And from my just like separating parent, separating all of that aside, I find that so fascinating because whenever I didn't know how to, from my like what I can remember from childhood, it was if I couldn't figure out how to do something, I'd go figure it out. That would be my first step. It wouldn't be I would go figure it out, and then if I couldn't figure out what was going on, then I'd ask. But and sometimes that is the case, and I've shifted my language. Thank you from last time of like what do I can't remember what I said before. It's like so what have you already tried? So what
Mm.
have you tried instead of um what could you? That was it. I used to use what could you do. It shifted to what have you tried? And I started using that language with the twins, and the reaction was, I don't know. Like, have you tried this? No. Okay.
What do you think you should do then?
Yeah. I don't know. Tell me what to do. I'm like, no, no. I'm here to support you, but no.
So, um, this is jumping back to trampoline. Jumping. Um, yes, I did that on purpose. So, the the way that most people teach somersaults is very step by step instructional. Their argument is because it keeps people safe. I don't agree with that, but yeah, we'll go with it. And I've been working with a profoundly deaf person for a while, and about 4 weeks ago, we started exploring somersaults, i.e., front flip from feet to feet. Not feet to land on bum. I flipped over my head. No, actually, feet to feet. And the first couple of weeks, they really struggled. Like they could get round with, like she was comfortable going over her head. We'd done some forward rolls and like bouncing on hands and knees and me helping her over. So she was comfortable jumping and going over her head. And she was really struggling. Now, instead of me giving her the answer or telling her how to do it or literally supporting her, physically supporting her round so she's got someone helping her, I'm like double jumping her so she's got more height. I'm moving her shoulders round so she gets her head over. I'm moving her hips up, she gets her head, blah, blah, blah. Instead of doing all of that, um, I basically just left her mat on a trampoline and told her to figure it out. um, and what I did when she was struggling is I gave her a similar problem, but not the same.
Mhm.
So she was comfortable doing hands and knees, flip forwards over onto her back. She could do that. So I said, okay, here's a challenge. Do that and then half twist to hands and knees again, and then go again because you're now back on your hands and knees. So she's from her back, like almost like side roll to your hands and knees with a little bit of a bounce. And then now you're on your hands and knees, go forward again. So forwards and then roll and forward and roll.
That
No,
sounds kind of like in the traditional approach, like scaffolding, because you're like building up the skill.
yes, but no.
Ah, interesting.
Because when you think about it, flip is feet to feet.
Hmm.
So if you're standing feet on the trampoline,
Hmm.
generating rotation is drastically different from hands and knees.
Okay.
Because if you're on your hands and knees, you can.
But unless I misunderstand, isn't scaffolding starting from where they can, how I've always used it is starting from what they do know and building up to what they don't know using the terminology.
In cognitive situations, yes, that works.
Mm.
Like one add one, and then you scaffold it to one add two, one add three, two add three, etc. But in physical movements, the biomechanics are drastically different.
Okay, cool.
So it would be like saying, okay, now you know one add
Is
one.
it less upwards and more kind of outwards? So you'll because I remember we've spoken about this before, where it's kind of like you can be very thin at the top of the podium versus spreading out.
They're not the same thing.
Hmm,
Like
okay.
if if we go maths, because maths is I think is the most I think is the easiest to explain in a simple scenario. One add one
Hmm.
and one times one look the
Hmm.
same, but they are fundamentally different. Because if you go two add two, you get four. You
And
go
then
two
two
times
times
two,
two. Ah,
it's still
okay.
four. But now you go three, three add three is six. Three times three, well, that's nine.
So the difference between what you're doing, and my comparison to scaffolding is like scaffolding is one ad, and what and like the ecological approach, which is what you're using here, is multiplication. So the end result looks the same, how you're working it out. And actually, when you think about it, that kind of really matches quite well because if you use scaffolding, it takes a heck of a lot longer when you're using addition, versus whereas if you use multiplication, it's quicker.
Yeah, you could argue it is scaffolding. Where the difference comes for me with this specific example is hands and knees and feet. To start with, it's a different starting position.
Mm,
It's also different bouncing. Hands and knees bouncing, sometimes you can be front heavy or back heavy. In trampoline, when you're on your feet, as long as you are competent, I mean, if you're learning how to do a somersault, you are competent enough to jump and stay roughly in the same spot. So you're not going to be jumping forwards and backwards all the time. So there's the that difference. Then because you're already in your hands and knees, you don't have the same height. You're also starting the rotation from a different place because your shoulders are literally like next to the trampoline. Whereas when you're standing up, you can lean forwards. And if you lean forwards and somersault, now you're going forwards. That's what most people start with.
mm,
Hands and knees, it forces you to rotate slightly differently. I'm not going to go into the
mm.
biomechanics, but the way that you rotate is different. And then when you're coming round, instead of landing on your bum, if which would be
So
from feet,
is it harder?
it's not harder. It depends what you're comparing it to.
Mm.
Like if I was to ask someone do a flip, they would find it easier to go from feet and whip their legs round and get to their back or bum, right? And they would say, "Oh, that's easier." It's easier if the measure is go from feet and have rotation of your body. Yes, it's
You
easier.
just you so you're basically just coming at it from a different um like a different approach from a different perspective, less so than
Yes, it's so the experiences are similar,
yes.
but the actual skills are drastically different
Okay.
because
I'm trying to think of a kind of a similar example with guitar because
like a forward
often
roll, a
yeah.
forward roll is a somersault.
Hmm.
But if you were to say I could do a forward roll, now I can do a flip. I don't think it's the same.
No.
but the experience of rotating forwards, and that's the similar bit. So the hands and knees bounce over to back. It's still
Hmm.
got the rotation bit,
Hmm.
but the hands and knees over to back isn't contact on the trampoline like a forward roll.
Hmm.
So it's more like a somersault, but it's still not a somersault.
So you're kind of you're constraining the environment, obviously, but like it's isolating pieces. So if I think about it from a music perspective, it's like you have a like the front flip of the somersault you're doing is like an entire piece of music. Like you're learning a piece of music, and or maybe 12 bars of this if it's a simple song. What it sounds like is like you're breaking it down to like a 4 bar section, or maybe even the first three notes of 1 bar. So it's like 1 bar, first three notes. Look at those first three notes. I remember when I was learning something that was well beyond my skill level. Eh. Um, but that was the like I broke it down first into a bar, then three, then first into from a like a 16 bar section. I broke it down into an 8 bar. That was still very like I couldn't move through that. I was going through. It felt like I was going through sludge. So I brought it down to a 4 bar, then a 2 bar, then it ended up being a 1 bar, and I was just going through those three notes over and over again. And as I was going through those notes, I was looking and never in the same way. It was I was changing it slightly and adding small variation to help me figure it out. I tried using it this way. I tried doing it that way. I tried looking at this, tried focusing on that.
So the way I guess I would associate what you're discussing is it's sort of there, but instead of playing the same notes of the bigger song, it's the same notes but in a different order. Like,
So you could also say that's the same as like the same notes of the different rhythm. Like that's how
yeah.
I would translate that back because a different rhythm requires different motion of fingers. If
Hmm.
Because often what I do whenever we have these discussions is I relate it to a mental activity, and I feel
Okay.
that's not quite as useful, which is why I'm using guitar for a change. Mental activity is a whole different thing,
Yeah.
which we
I know
touch.
what you meant.
Yeah.
More academic.
Mm,
Yeah. But yes, yeah, that's it. Because it's the the movement itself, the skill itself of doing a hands and knees forward turn over to back is not a somersault, but
mm,
it is half a rotation forwards,
mm,
which helps with orientation. So you know what you're looking for, how it feels to go round, all those sorts of things. Um, and adding a half twist afterwards actually like throws people because if you're prepping a somersault, why would you do a half twist and then go forwards again? Like that doesn't make sense. But it's to add repetition to the hands and knees turnover.
mm.
And last week they were really struggling. Like they could do one and sort of like just roll rather than actually like going from back, jumping to hands and knees and then over. They were struggling. This week they turned up and did like three, like hands and knees over to back to hands and knees, then over to back to hand, etc. They did that 3 times, just straight up. No practice on any other trampoline. They weren't thinking about it. They just did it, and that to me is the learning over time and them recognizing what information to attune to, the specifying information to attune to. So even though I wasn't teaching them a front somersault, they gained expertise in attuning to specifying information which is relevant for the somersaulting movement because the specifying information is similar. There are invariants in those skills, and the transferable feedback, i.e., where you are on the trampoline and where you land on the trampoline, is similar. So they could then focus on what was most important. And so instead of focusing on getting their head down to get their bum round to flip over, they were focusing at looking at a trampoline and getting their shoulders up and their bum up to get round. Because when they're going hands and knees over, they don't want to scratch their head on the trampoline. So they can't put their head down. When you're on your feet, that's what people tend to do, put your head down. And because she was so used to, from the hands and knees after these 2 weeks, of getting shoulders up, bum up, so she doesn't headbutt the trampoline,
Mm.
going to feet. Now she's like, oh, I'm going up. I've got more time, and she was like landing on her heels and then falling backwards.
It's kind of like I kind of relate that like, oh, that was this is this and the differences and noticing these differences. I relate that very highly to how I learned that piece because I started using different rhythms, which if we look at it from a cog psych perspective, that was adding, what was it?
Cognitive load.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance and causing me to have to learn new things. But really what it is just gaining a very specific skill. Like I am very specifically learning something and seeing different ways of doing things. And it helped so much in terms of learning that piece and gaining competency in that song.
I'm curious, did it help you because you learnt the mistakes that you were making and you learnt how to like not make those mistakes?
Mm,
Because when it didn't work out the way you wanted, I imagine you recognized, oh, that didn't work because my fingers are in the wrong
yeah.
place or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you and some of the I imagine some of those situations because of the rhythm and potentially the ordering wasn't the same as the actual like target, the actual goal. It wasn't the same, but if that mistake happened in the actual play, you knew how to solve the problem because you'd already come across it.
Mm. Yeah, and also it was as simple as like the original kind of belief that was behind us. Oh, because this is so much easier. So doing dotted rhythms versus just a straight rhythm, like a dotted rhythm is weird and it requires a different like finger position because you need to be able to go da 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 da, which is not what you would normally see in music. It's quite straight often. And so having to do it in that way, then in reverse, I see where my fingers could be more effectively positioned to achieve the thing I wanted to do. So that when I went back to the original piece, my fingers were felt naturally in that position of like, oh, cool, this is cool. This has become easier because now I've added desirable difficulty into what I've done. But
So
actually,
were you told where to put your fingers, or did
no,
you
I
figure
figured
it
it
out?
out, which is why I going back to the conversation with my kids, I find that so interesting. Like they do not seem to do that.
I
It's
would be
like,
really interested into seeing some of those situations because all of, at the moment, the people that I've worked with at East One Tram, they, when I give them a challenge or a problem, they all want to figure it out, even though some of them at school struggle, are told off, don't follow rules, etc.,
mm.
etc.
It's
But
interesting because I was like, okay, cool. Maybe there is you just don't want to do it, and that's totally fine. Like, who wants to? Because the example was folding washing. Like, it's boring. It sucks, you know. So I get that. So I was like, and so Aiden and I've started playing Minecraft again because it's nice. Um, and so I was like, Aiden, have you tried doing like how would you light up your house with redstone? Like, how would you do that? Like, what? And it was like using, and I mentioned about daylight sensor. He immediately he was like, "Oh, daylight sensors." Like, cool.
yep,
And then started, and then very quickly stopped.
because
Because didn't want to. It was just, oh, no, that's too hard. Like the moment it got slightly like the moment that my perception of him
yeah.
anyway was the moment he started to struggle, he stopped
Hmm.
versus continuing. Now that
So
could be because the task was there were too many options, maybe. So maybe there could have been, but it was interesting that rather than for me, if something is hard, I'm like, okay, cool. What can I do? I may step away from the task and look like I'm not doing it, but I'm also still problem solving.
So to me, I would be interested to see if he chooses to go back to it at another point, and if he does, when. Because what I
Mm.
imagine would be useful slash likely to happen is he sees someone using them or someone do it.
That's what I think is going to happen because, of course, I'm going to use them because we're all in a realm together.
Mm.
So I'm going to start using them. So I'd be very intrigued to see what would happen.
Are you playing on PC or?
I'm playing on console and PC because I'm using Bedrock Edition because that's where the kids play on the PlayStation, so I can play on here on my Mac.
Okay. And you say realm, I assume that's a server.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
the Minecraft
Server.
server.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, no, because the way, so I guess closing out the story with the girl on the trampoline, she did one. She landed one, and once she'd done it, most of the time in traditional tramp, you you've landed lots on your feet because of support, right? So I would have been on the trampoline, I would have been holding her hand and on her shoulder and then gone round, and then she's sort of like on her feet, a little bit on her feet, and then the mat's pushed in, still on her feet, and then it's just, oh yeah, I know how to do this. And then they sort of just struggle to try and get it to land on feet
Mm.
because I would then step away. And now she's doing it with me stepping in and catching landing with the mat. And then she's doing it with me just standing there and watching, and she doesn't know if I'm going to go in or not. And from what I've seen, lots of people then struggle to land the somersaults because they still need to figure it out on their own.
Mm.
Once the girl that I was teaching had landed the first one, she proceeded to land about 30 in the next like 20 minutes. It was just done it, got it. This is how I do the thing. And even when it was drastically different, so she went up more or she went down more, she knew the difference. She could, after about four or five, she could tell me which was a good one and which wasn't a good one, just like by the way it felt. And
Mm.
one of the other coaches in the room, normally when you've just learned a skill and you're landing it, everyone's like clapping for every one. But well, hands clapping because she's deaf. But the other coach clapped, and the deaf girl, looked at me and went, "Why? That was bad." And I'm like, she is so attuned to the information of doing the skill, and she's gained so much expertise in her last 3 weeks of exploration that she's looking at people going, "That was bad. Why, why are you clapping it?" And I'm like, this is such a different world,
Mm.
so different. Um,
Yeah.
and coming back to the Minecraft example, I feel like it will be similar.
Mm.
Once you got it, figured it out, it
Mm.
sort of clicks, or it did for me, does for me. You sort of, that's how to do it. And then if there's mistakes, you're like, oh yeah, I've already made that mistake. And that's like learning from mistakes is what you should do, blah, blah, blah. And lots of coaches talk about it. Be like, yeah, but if you don't let them make the mistakes, they can't learn from them.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought about playing Minecraft again a few months back, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Can't be bothered. Playing Minecraft by yourself when you've got like loads of other stuff to do, it just doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah, but I've got my two who love Minecraft and my, my son has been desperate for me to play, and so I'm like, all right, cool, I'll make a realm and set it up and I'll come and join in because it's something that they both enjoy doing and I like a peek into kind of how they what they do, and it's a nice way of just being with them.
mm,
So something that I play, and Carl also plays or likes to play Minecraft, so it's a nice
I still
number of
watch
hours.
Hermitcraft.
Huh?
I still watch Hermitcraft.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Except I look at Hermitcraft and then look at mine and go, oh, yikes.
Yeah, yeah, but then they like live in Minecraft. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't. I oh yes. I live on trampolines. Well, that's the plan anyway. So I know my word is trampoline. I saw a video of a girl in a wheelchair. She is currently trying to recover out of wheelchair from various diseases and disorders and stuff on a trampoline. Two people supporting her on the trampoline. I was like, that's awesome.
That is so cool. That's
So,
amazing.
but yeah, got a lot of work to do before we can do any of that, but it's fun.
Mm, yep,
Right. Think that covers everything.
pretty much.
So thanks for listening, and talk to you all next week.